Welcome to Mic Drop, the podcast where relevancy is irrelevant and we don't give a shit about your feelings.
The consolidation of power at the federal level in the guise of public safety is a national trend and should be guarded against at all costs. This erosion of rights, however incremental, is the slow death of freedom. We have reached a point where the power of the federal government is such that they can essentially target anyone of their choosing. Recent allegations that government agencies may have targeted political opponents should alarm all Americans, regardless of party affiliation. Revisionist views of the Constitution by opportunistic politicians and unelected judges with agendas that interpret the Bill of Rights to take power away from the people and consolidate it at all the federal level threaten the core principles of the Republic. As a free people, keeping federal power in check is something that should be of a concern to us all. The fundamental value of freedom is what sets us apart from the rest of the world. We are citizens, not subjects, and we must stay ever vigilant that we remain so. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, it's a distinct honor and a pleasure to welcome my next guest to the podcast. He spent 20 years and is a retired Navy SEAL. He started off as enlisted, made his way to 04 as an officer, which deems him the badass coin term Mustang. He owns Pineapple Brothers Hunting Company out of Hawaii. He does consulting for tactical operations. But most importantly, and why he's sitting across from me today, is that he is the author of the political thriller called Terminal List. He put Grizzly Adams through Mountain Man School. Please welcome to the stage, Jack Carr.
Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule. I know, you're busy. You've been on a number of badass podcasts with some mutual friends of ours this week, and welcome to Texas.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a beautiful spot out here.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Absolutely love Texas, and happened to work out that I was going to come this way anyway with the kids to head up to Red River County and do a little hunting this weekend.
Yeah, that's good stuff. We're gonna get into that. He's it's been almost 20 years I think since we've seen each other.
Crazy,
right?
Yeah. We were just talking about that and how it was probably in the bar at Danny's in Coronado the last time we saw each other.
No, I know it. It's I can't tell you how many crazy ass stories we both have from that place, as well as every one of our frogmen brethren. But that's a podcast in and of itself. I think
that is. I was just thinking about that the other day. Actually, how we were our first platoons. We're essentially pre-cell phone. At least,
thank God.
And how we used to call in that first platoon Danny's to find somebody. So anytime between like 3 in the afternoon to 10 at night, if you're looking for somebody, it was, and they weren't on their home phone and they weren't at the team, then it was a call to Danny's to those 3 or 4 girls that work behind the bar there. And they'd pick up the phone and say, hey, is so-and-so there? And more often than not, they'd hand the phone across the bar. And sure enough, they were sitting right there having a drink. So crazy times.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's so many memories, some of which I remember, some I don't from there, but which leads me in, I like to just kind of throw some bullshit questions out at people right out of the gate to get the juices flowing and get the interview started. But that's a good segue into my first question for the lightning round, which is, what is the worst hangover you've ever had?
Oh, geez. I think they're all horrible. Yeah, that's my initial response is that just a horrible feeling. Yeah. I don't know. One in particular does not stand out. But yeah, just
all of them from Danny's, probably.
A lot of them from those early years, anyway.
Yeah. Favorite hazing experience, and that could be you going through it or doling it out to somebody.
Geez, getting that trident. That's the one that initially pops to mind. And I don't necessarily consider it hazing, although I'm sure if there were videos of the said incident or ceremony, it could be interpreted that way. But
did you guys have the badge of honor pinning? Like, did it stay that way all day? Like, that's what...
I don't know if it was all day or not. I just remember they positioned you up against the Connex box, so you couldn't back out. Yeah, you couldn't. you were there was no give to that punch. Yeah. So no, I remember that distinctly, and remembered some of the guys I thought wouldn't be hitting so hard were surprisingly strong, and then some of the guys that I thought were just gonna floor you didn't end up.
Just gave you a little fist bump.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, it's funny thinking back to that time. I mean, just not that it was that long ago, but just how much shit has changed militarily, politically correctness-wise. Like, I mean, I know hazing was a big part of our generation, but in a good way. I think that's one of the elements that I think is lost on both society and our military is there's not enough of that, I don't think. I mean, not obviously, like with anything, it can be abused, but it's a very valuable tool in its own right. And I think the attitude of our society, because of a lack of physical correction, has gone a little bit overboard. What's your take on that?
Yeah, so the term hazing is probably not the best one to use. And my experience going through it, I didn't really think of it as hazing. It was just like, as a new guy, you're going to do new guy stuff, and people are going to treat you as a new guy. Yeah. And if they're not, it probably means something is wrong. Like then they don't really like you. You're not really performing, and then it's going to get serious. But the actual quote unquote hazing that you go through as a new guy, it bonds you together with those other new guys. I'm still super close to that initial first platoon of guys coming in out of buds, out of SQT, right into Team 5, and we got hazed, quote unquote, together. But it was a fun experience, and I think it can. I definitely heard of some other people not having such fun experiences. But at Team 5 during that time frame, and the way they did it was good. It made us stronger and closer.
Yeah. I mean, to me, the only time where it was not really a positive experience is like if it's used as like, this dude is fucked up and he needs to be reprimanded like by the entire platoon, and have that like come to Jesus meeting. Like those ones were pretty fucking brutal. But we had a couple new guys that I was in the platoon with that had that happen to them. And then there was a new guy in particular in one of my subsequent platoons that he ended up getting his trident pulled and booted out of the teams entirely. But man, we turned the screws on that fucking kid a few times trying to straighten his ass out. But it is.
I think more effective might be the chief to screwed up individual one-on-one type. So it's not a ganging up type. I don't know.
I mean, we did everything to that kid. I mean, he had the LT, the lieutenant, pulled him aside. The chief pulled him aside. The LPO. I mean, he went to mass. I mean, the platoon pulled him aside. I mean, he was just a lost cause, I guess. But
every so often there's one of those that makes it through, just like any organization.
No, I know it. What is Jack Carr's EDC on a normal given day?
Yeah. So I like that. I'm just switching over from the Glock 43 to the SIG, the P365.
Really?
And I'm really happy to do that because of our experience with SIGs going down range and just having that 226 both in training and in combat for so many years. So I love where that company is headed and the things that they're doing, and that 365 carries more rounds.
Does it have that same action and feel as a 226 or 228 or?
I won't. No. It's just and. I have had quite a few different 226s over the years, and they don't even make the 228 anymore. I'm actually in the market for one just because I want one because
nostalgia.
We had exactly. But no, it's a different animal, and it's but it feels great in my hand. It carries more than that 43, and I love the company. They're easy to work with. They're doing great things. They've done great things for NSW, and I'm proud to carry it. So
that's cool.
That one, and then I'm about to switch the Glock 19, in for the 320 X carry. So they're equivalent to the Glock 19.
Oh, I got you.
So that's on the way from SIG right now.
Is that the same mag capacity for that one?
I'm not sure. I'll have to go check. It's not close. Yeah. It's the equivalent there, but it has not arrived yet, so I haven't been able to put it through the paces.
Yeah. Well, you'll have to keep us posted on what you think of that one for sure.
I will be posting about it.
Yeah, good shit. What's the perfect meal in your opinion?
Oh, steak. Yeah.
What kind of steak?
Something that we get ourselves. So backstrap, tenderloin from something that one of the kids or my wife has put on the table. And if it's me, great. But I love it being able to talk about, hey, our daughter, we went out hunting. You did every step of this process. We knew exactly what this animal was eating. We took it out exactly when it should have been taken out, and now we're sharing that here at our dinner table. So I love that. So backstrap, tenderloin from Axis Deer on Lanai, from whitetail out here, from elk in New Mexico, for wherever we go hunting that particular season.
You're like probably the fourth or fifth person that's mentioned how perfect Axis deer is I've never had it, but
it's next level. Like people talk about it, so I don't want to overplay it, but it's it's so clean, so fresh, so amazing, and it's just I don't really know quite how to describe it. And obviously how you prep it in the field is a huge part of that. But if you do take the normal care that you would with anything else, it's just a really tender and delicious meat.
Is it at all like a beef fillet or a bison fillet, or is it?
It's like a very good, it's a tenderloin from something that's really good, really tender. So some people, if you would tell someone that it was steak from a cow or whatever, they'd probably say, "Oh wow, this is different," but wow, it's really good. Yeah. That's my guess anyway.
Does it have that gaminess to it at all?
No, I mean it's all. Once again, how you prep it and care for it in the field, but between the field and your table.
Yeah, I mean, for me, is there a specific thing that don't do this in terms of dressing it that will ruin it if you do it this way or don't do it this way, or is it the entire process?
Entire process, yeah. And in Lanai anyway, and out here in Texas, what they're eating probably plays a role, but I've never had them eat something that would be strange and would affect the meat in a bad way. So just being careful with that prep and getting it to the table.
Yeah, it's a cool process. I'm not a hunter, not because I have a problem with it. I never did it growing up, and I've interviewed a lot of guys that are big into bow hunting, which I know you're one of them as well. But it's certainly, I mean, there's enough guys that I know and trust their opinion that are crazy enough about it that certainly makes me want to try it. But I think it's one of those things where I would definitely want to make the time to be exposed to it properly, and dovetailing onto that is to make sure I'm learning from somebody that's going to do it the right way too, to make it a good experience. Because I know whether it's shooting, jiu-jitsu, whatever, is like if you don't take the time to do it right, and B, don't have the right instruction, like that'll screw it up for for the whole fucking process. But did you grow up bow hunting?
Yeah, no, I grew up shooting, and but hunting wasn't part of something that we did as a family. Yeah. But I always knew I had that draw from an early age. I was always asking my dad to take me, but it just wasn't something he grew up doing. So we didn't. But we always had firearms around. We'd go to the range, shoot, all that stuff. Learned how to be safe with them. But didn't hunt. So my first real hunt was in the teams, actually. It was when we did after sniper school, and when we had that sniper sustainment operation, I think, and it's still set up, and I won't mention the name of the place because I don't know if they advertise it or not, but up in northern Washington State, and they took us up there. I think I was the second group they took up. The first one was just a test group, and then I think my group was the second group to go up there. But part of that, they wanted us to put a round into something that was living and breathing before we had to do it for real, and that was the fall of 2000, I think. So went up there, and that's where I got my first deer, and I was with some friends of ours. With Happy was up there with me, and we had a great experience up there. It was amazing, and brought the meat back and shared it with my wife at home, and just it was amazing experience, and I was hooked. And then of course September 11th happened, and things got really busy, and we got focused on that for the next up at this point 17 years, but up until I got back from my last Iraq deployment, and that's when my daughter expressed interest in hunting, and so we dove in, and we've been a hunting family ever since. Yeah,
that's a cool story. I remember hearing about that trip, and I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me? Like this, like the government's awesome. Paying these guys to go hunt? Like, Jesus Christ!"
That was pretty sweet. I don't think they actually framed it like that in all the paperwork they had to do to get us up there, but we also got to do some stocks on our own. So sniper school, sniper school we did it on our own in stalking, and then at Bull Hill, it was kind of Vietnam style still back then, but you did the whole thing with your spotter. And the cool thing about those stocks is that you had essentially a 360 degree range. So they had a mannequin they set up there, and then you got to plan your routes in, your routes out, and where you wanted to take those shots from. So there were so few people out there that the instructor staff could really mark where everybody was and make it a safe a safe shoot. Where sniper school, you have so many people stumbling around out there, you couldn't really do it that way. But it was really cool to be able to go in kind of like you would Vietnam style with your spotter and set up anywhere you want without any rules and take your shots on a mannequin.
Yeah, that's cool as hell. In terms of looking back at all the hunting experiences you have, would that one be kind of not the pinnacle, but like if you had to pick like a favorite hunting experience because it was your first one, or do you have one that stands out as being like this was the varsity kill for me?
Yeah, so up to this point, I think it would have to be New Mexico muzzleloader, my first elk.
No shit.
Because going in on that, I stalked in essentially the same way we did in the experience I just talked about, but also the same way we would in sniper school. So single person dropping down, stalking in to a place where I could get a shot, but it was essentially the same way we would have in sniper school, or using those old Vietnam tactics. And then with the muzzleloader, you have one shot, so it's got to be good.
Yeah.
And so that one really stands out for me. And it ended up being a huge old elk. It was delicious.
Yeah. On the muzzleloader, what is the grain weight on those rounds? Does it vary because it's?
I forget what that one was because the only time I ever shot it.
It's like 405 or something.
It was it was something huge. Yeah. Something that gets the job done.
God, that's cool. That's awesome. What is your favorite fiction book? Do you have one?
Yeah, so I think it would have to be David Morrell's Brotherhood of the Rose, and he published that in the early 80s. And I was a fan of this type of fiction my whole life. So from a very early age, I wanted to, 1, be a Navy SEAL, and 2, write political military thrillers.
Yeah.
And I think that's because, 1, I wanted to be in the military first, so I naturally gravitated towards books and movies that had something to do with what I wanted to do later in life, with that profession of arms.
Yeah.
And my mom was a librarian, so I got we were surrounded by books at a very early age.
Yeah.
And Brotherhood of the Rose, I think it came out in 1983, but David Morrell is also the guy that created the character Rambo back in 1973.
Yeah.
A book that's never been out of print since that date, by the way. But in Brotherhood of the Rose, and it's a trilogy, followed by Fraternity of the Stone, and then League of Night and Fog. But in Brotherhood of the Rose, the protagonists are former SF guys, and there's one line in there that talks about SEALs right in the middle of the book. And it's the first time that I'd seen SEALs mentioned in a work of fiction.
Yeah.
And he mentioned SEALs as being kind of the pinnacle of special operations.
Yeah.
And so I was like, wow, okay. I know what SEALs are from a movie called The Frogmen. I'd done some research with my mom at the local library about the training and who these guys are. And now I'm reading this book, Brotherhood of the Rose, and David Morrell is saying that SEALs are a pretty tough group of guys.
Yeah.
And so, that helps cement my future path.
Yeah, I think it always gets touted as the toughest U.S. military training, probably because it's longer than anything else. But like that one statement is a double-edged sword because I think it attracts people sometimes for the wrong reasons. But I think I know for me there's an element of that I think plays a role, albeit maybe small or bigger in some people's experiences, but that drives people to it just for that reason in and of itself,
For me, it made the research fairly easy because at the time, hey, what's the toughest thing? Okay, I'm being told that whether there is or not, regardless whether it is or not, that's how it's touted and that's how it's mentioned, especially back in the early 80s before there was internet and all the rest of these different inputs. Yeah. But hey, I heard, hey, this is the toughest training ever devised by a modern military, and these guys are a pretty elite force. Okay, they had me. So no other recruiting was necessary. Yeah. Yeah. I was on that path from a very early age. Yeah. But some other books that are more contemporary that in this genre, in the political military space, that I love. One I read in college, and that is Point of Impact by Stephen Hunter, and it's essentially a sniper book. Yeah. But they made the movie Shooter out of it with Mark Wahlberg. Yeah. But in the book Point of Impact, it's a Vietnam vet, and then they switched it over later for Mark Wahlberg, made it more contemporary. But that's an amazing book, one of my favorites. Stephen Hunter is an amazing author, still writing today, and just an incredible guy. And he's become just because of we got connected, just a great guy and a big supporter of my book. So amazing guy.
Yeah.
And Term Limits, if people haven't read Term Limits by Vince Flynn, definitely check that one out. Yeah. Vince Flynn unfortunately passed away a few years back, but just an incredible guy. I got to meet him at SHOT Show years and years ago before he passed away, obviously. And Term Limits is just, he knocks it out of the park.
Yeah. Are there any books that you really like in this space, or I guess any space, but that the movie just completely butchered the shit out of the book and like to the point where it pissed you off?
No, I kind of expect that going in. So that helps. I just want to enjoy it for what it is.
Set the bar low.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So keep the expectations low so that if it's just okay, then it'll be a good movie watching experience.
Yeah.
Kind of same thing with gun handling or whatever else. Like I go in and try to enjoy it for what it is rather than try to critique it and make it a miserable experience for myself and those around me.
Yeah. Look at you with the cup half
Exactly.
full
You
attitude.
guys love to point out everything that's wrong as you're watching a movie and ruin it for everybody around them. Typically.
I know it. No, I know it. I mean, I'm guilty of it too. I mean, whether
You probably see the dog handling stuff in movies and are like, oh man.
Yeah, it's a travesty. I mean, for that matter, shit, even on some of the live cop shows, I watch the dog handling and I'm just like, oh my God. But that's a whole nother story. But,
Yeah. Most people won't catch that though.
Yeah.
So that's
no,
for
sure. Yeah. One thing I like to ask everybody is, what does your morning routine look like on a normal day?
Oh, well, I wish I could tell you I was disciplined in my approach here, but life is complete chaos. So up until this summer when things really got crazy, I was fairly disciplined about getting up at 5 and meeting my workout crew at 5:30, getting that workout done from 5:30 to 7.
Are you lifting hard during that one?
So more CrossFit stuff.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like a mountain town CrossFit. Being where we're from, we moved from Coronado to Park City, so left the military behind, both physically and psychologically,
and
made that
elevation-wise.
break, and got up to the mountains. And the guys I work out with are just animals, and they do about I'd say like 5 different CrossFit workouts in one workout there, and then some days we'll do on big trail runs and stop as we're going along and do some insanity. In the winter, we'll put on snowshoes or put on skins on the skis and do a dawn patrol up to the top of a peak and watch the sunrise over Park City and then ski down. So it's kind of a CrossFit / Jim Jones / Strong First, but all combined together in 1 hour and a half, just melee of chaos.
To me, what I like about that though is it sounds like the workouts are everything but mundane though, like because if you're incorporating real shit into it, I mean it piggybacks on the functional fitness thing, but it takes it, I think, to a different and neat level of of augmenting things that you would actually do, but that are also enjoyable into it. I mean, and to me, that's kind of the key to staying in shape, But,
absolutely. And the group of people that we work out with they're all driven. It's a small group, and they're all about human performance, maximizing that human performance, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and combining all those things to be the best people they can be, the best husbands, the best fathers, the best citizens they can be, and whether they know it or not, be prepared for whatever life throws at them. So it's a really cool group of guys that are all very successful, and just want to maximize their potential.
Yeah, for me, I talk about this on a lot of episodes. Like I can't work out first thing. Like body wise, it just doesn't pan out for me. Like my performance suffers to the point where it's counterproductive for me to work out early or even right away when I first get up, even if it's not that early. But
don't get me wrong, it's miserable getting up and getting out of bed and getting it done that early. But that's when these guys work out, and then also my days have just been essentially hijacked by all these different things I have going on, which is great. It's a great problem to have. But once I get back and have breakfast, get the kids to school, and then start the day, that's where I really need to start getting much more disciplined and just blocking off time to write, blocking off time for emails, blocking off time for these certain things so that I don't get, the day doesn't get hijacked and get away from me. So I need to work on that a little bit.
Are you eat breakfast before you work out or after?
It's too early. Oh my gosh, just getting up and getting out the door, especially when it's freezing out. So I just get it done and then get home and then have breakfast.
What does breakfast look like?
So it is initially the bulletproof coffee. So I get that going. And then it's eggs and it's avocado typically. And that's pretty much, gets the fats, gets the proteins in there. And I'm not crazy about it, but like to try to, err to the side of just things that are organic, where I know where they came from, and nothing processed. So I try to just kind of err to that side without weighing things and without getting too insane about it.
Counting your macros and all that.
Exactly. But I did get really into the bone broth this last year too. So I love it. Once a day I'll have bone broth, great protein and mineral, everything else in there. So I do that once a day as well. well.
Yeah. Do you, is there a brand you use? I drink Osa Bones,
I'm going to check that one out. No, what is it? Kettle and Fire and Kettle. I do that one, and then Epic. So I mix both those two. And then I wanted to make my own this year. I got a moose last year in Alaska, and I wanted them to send down all the bones so I could try it myself. And then they didn't send it down, though. They missed that.
Yeah, to me, but it's one of those things like, I mean, people are like, oh, you can just make it yourself. Like, yeah, I can build my own house too, but it's going to look like shit, you know?
Right. There's some things you want to outsource.
Yeah. I mean, like, to me, that's one of those things where it's not that expensive, and for the time that it takes and to do it right and store it, it's like, Jesus, like it'd turn into a part-time job just making bone broth the right way, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I just wanted to see if I could do it and see what it would taste like from a moose or an elk. Yeah. So, but I haven't not done that yet, but it's on my list.
Now, fitness, diet, nutrition wise, do you err on the side of, it sounds like you're kind of in the keto camp or paleo a little bit, or?
You know, it's really just, I don't have the time to devote to all those, the changing diets out there. So really it's just trying to eat as organic as possible, know where my meat came from, and nothing that's processed. So really that's kind of it, wherever that, but I'm not, it's like one of my friends in particular does the 1 meal a day at the end of the day thing, and absolutely loves it, has tons of energy, swears by it. But for me, just getting to that point where my body adapts, I don't think my wife would not appreciate the 4 weeks it takes for my body to adapt and my attitude during that time. So I need to be eating fairly constantly throughout the day.
Yeah. No, that's good shit. I'm more that way too. I mean, I pay a little bit of attention to it, but I'm not weighing things out and measuring shit and whatever like some people do. I don't know how they do it, but all right. So moving on, in terms of your childhood, I know you grew up in Northern California. Can you just kind of synopsize, siblings, what your childhood was like in terms of just the overall experience?
Yeah, I grew up in a great area, Northern California. So, both the ocean and the mountains. So I always knew at the time how fortunate I was. That's sometimes I worry about, my kids, if they realize how fortunate they are getting to do all the things that they do. And for whatever reason, I just realized, hey, I'm very fortunate here to be able to be in the Pacific Ocean one day in Northern California with that coastline that I love, just rocky coastline, fairly remote coastline, love that. And then a couple hours later, be up in the mountains, be up in the Sierras. So though we didn't hunt, we did spend time backpacking, and so I was working with a map and compass fairly early, and just made a couple cabins up in Northern California that we would go to. So I got to run around the woods quite a bit as a kid, both at home and during the summers and winters also skiing. But once again, very, very fortunate, both surrounded by books, being outdoors, and knowing the direction that I was going to take with my life from a very early age. Yeah.
Did you say you had siblings, or?
Yep. So I have a younger brother and younger sister. So they're not in the military, but they're very successful in their own rights.
Yeah. Was the dynamic growing up? I know, like with my childhood, it was kind of Leave It to Beaver-esque a little bit, like super balanced and stable and whatever. And it seems like a lot of team guys had pretty good childhoods that way. Obviously, not all of them, but was the dynamic in your family pretty sound and stable that way? Or
I'd say so. I mean, my parents got divorced during my high school years, but other than that, hey, that happens. And you just kind of accept it and move on. And I'd say very stable, and stable enough where I realized how fortunate we are in this country to have all these options and opportunities. And so I don't think they didn't talk politics. They didn't really talk about that stuff around the dinner table. It was just, it was just kind of part of our of growing up that I realized that early on. So I hope my kids are too. But we talk about it this time. I talk about it with the kids.
It's one thing. I think it's probably from the 24-hour news cycle and social media, but same with me. Like, I remember growing up, we never really talked about it. And I think it's been a huge paradigm shift in our society of where now, like, kids in elementary school and stuff have opinions with air quotes, like they're just regurgitating shit they heard their parents say, but or teachers or whatever. But it seems like in a pretty negative way, I think politics has been woven into the fabric of this country more than it should. And I see a huge shift with that. I mean, do you feel like that's kind of a similar problem?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's hard to get away from it.
Yeah.
It's tough, which is why I love doing things like we're doing this weekend, which are putting away the iPads, putting away the iPhones, no TV, and just getting outside together, getting in a stand together, being able to talk. And that's something we can do forever together, because going to soccer games and lacrosse practices, that stuff only lasts for so long. It lasts up through high school, possibly college. But after that, when you link up, it's, barbecue's great, dinner's great, but being able to sort of remove yourself and just get together and be alone out in the woods, there's something about that, being around the campfire, where you really get to bond. And it's sad that a lot of people don't get to do that these days. And it's something we can do together forever. So I can do that with these kids when I'm 85, 90, whatever it may be.
They may be hoisting you up into the stand.
Yeah, we might do ground blinds. But no, my parents never talked about who they voted for. And maybe that's because I think my dad was right and my mom was left. So I think that might have had something to do with why they didn't discuss it, so they wouldn't argue about it.
Maybe that's why they're divorced.
It's possible that it might have something to do with it. But we do talk about it because, like you said, there are just so many different inputs for these kids, from Snapchat to Instagram. Not so much Facebook anymore for the kids, anyway, from what I understand. But Twitter, of course, you can get sucked in on Twitter. And I have just slowly started to wade into this realm because of the book, and the days of being a reclusive author up in the mountains in a cabin where no one knows your face or hears from you. Those days are kind of over if you want to be a commercial success. So now you have to build it like you would a business. So I'm wading into the social media space. Started last year around Christmas, right before the book came out, kind of to get used to it a little bit, and it was very foreign. One, because of what they showed us in the SEAL teams, how the enemy can exploit really an entire network of team guys, of military people, and find out when they're coming, when they're going. And if you can figure that out based on open source social media, then they know when you're going to be gone, and when your spouse and kids are going to be home, which is that's the weak target right there. And what do they target? They target that. So it's something I'm very, very cognizant of as I wade in here, which is probably why I just taking it easy, slowly wading in. But it's something I have to figure out. So and these kids are growing up with that. They're growing up with that each and every day, and they're getting these inputs. So I feel like we have to talk about it around the dinner table. We've got to talk about what's going on, and frame it for them in a way that's responsible and appropriate.
Speaking of that, I mean, like one of the things that I notice, in terms of people letting their kids have social media accounts and stuff like that, like I'm always kind of astounded by that, like the lack of oversight. Especially as kids get, I mean, it's one thing if they're 6 or 7, on an iPad or whatever, which, I mean, I'm kind of a big proponent of not having devices across the board, but there's an element of them having to know how to navigate that realm too, so that they don't have the Amish lifestyle of, now when they're 18 and they're out of the house and it's sensory overload, and then they make a big shit sandwich out of it because of whatever. But I'm curious, is that something that you have that plays a big role in that?
Well, I was outvoted in our family, so I think I have 49% of the vote. My wife has 51, and so we eventually gave in, and I think it was mostly because of pressure from other parents didn't help when you're telling your kid no, and all of a sudden the other parents are giving their kids iPhones and iPads at a very early age. That certainly does not help your position. And then they start talking to each other on that, and your kid's left out because they're not part of that. So it's tough. So we held out as long as we could, and then eventually I was outvoted. But it's about really teaching them how to responsibly deal with that. And I think not just talking about it once, but having it be a continual part of what you talk about as a parent, particularly about how what they see on Instagram, what they see on Snapchat is not really reality. It's people showing the best sides of themselves, showing a picture out of context, with sometimes copy that's out of context and paints a different picture, a picture they want. It's an advertisement, essentially. All these things are just advertisements, and that's why businesses use them, because you have a conduit into most everybody in the U.S. and the world. And then can advertise through these platforms. Well, kids are doing the same thing. Adults are doing the same thing. They're just advertising the parts of themselves that they want, which is not necessarily reality. So having kids recognize that and realizing, hey, these things that I see are not reality. This is an ad. Whether it's a personal friend, it's an ad for them, for their personal brand that they want to show the world, and that's not reality. So as long as they realize that it's part of the conversation, and they don't get sucked in and actually believe everything, just like an advertisement, then that's at least it's a way to kind of open their aperture a little bit to kind of some of the dangers of social media.
No, those are all great points. The ones that for people listening out there, keep that shit in mind as you raise the young ones. Yeah, speaking of social media and just kind of unplugging from that, you're talking about taking the kids. I know one of the things I like to do is go to national parks. I load the truck up and put a rooftop tent on it and go out and having that experience is a good way for us. It's obviously very different from hunting, but that same kind of lifestyle shift of just getting away from everything and appreciating what's around us for what it is, and whatever is a good way for me and mine, I guess, to get away from it all, which is pretty nice. But
yeah, no, absolutely. We also do a river rafting trip every year, because I find that the bottom of river canyons is also a place where you can go where you cannot get Wi-Fi or cell service. So we do a river trip every year and bring the kids, and it's great because you're also bringing the comforts of home essentially down the river, because it's not on your back.
Yeah.
So you can bring all that stuff down. Yeah. You can bring some wine down, some good food down, and have some great meals on the river in a beautiful place where you're not telling the kids, hold on just one sec, just got to return this text real quick, just one last. So I don't want that to be, because there are a lot of I have a lot going on, so there is a lot of communication I have to do, and I don't want the kids' memory of me to be returning texts and telling them, hold on, just wait 1 second while I do this, because there's not even an option to do that at the bottom of River Canyon or in a lot of places where we go to hunt. So if I think it's really important, well, I can't even do it because they're not getting through to me. So I like to be able to go to remote areas where nobody can find me.
Yeah, where you physically, it makes you disconnect because you have no service. And, No, I know it. So in terms of your childhood, were transferring into joining the Navy, was there anything in particular that drove you or inspired you to serve, just generally speaking? I mean, obviously the competition aspect of joining the SEALs, but on a kind of a broader spectrum, just military service across the board. Was there anything in particular that led to that? Yeah,
so my grandfather was in World War II, and he was killed in 1945, so kind of close to the end of the war. But my dad never even met his father. So I grew up around his silk maps. They used to give aviators back then. So if you hit the water, they wouldn't disintegrate like paper would. So I grew up with those, his wings, his medals, pictures of his old squadron. And he flew the Corsair, which was the one with the gull wings that would fold up for aircraft carriers. And at the time, as a kid, there was also a show with Robert Conrad called Black Sheep Squadron on TV. So I knew I was going to serve from a very early age. I just didn't know what it was until I found out about SEALs. And I think I found out about them from the movie The Frogmen. And on the weekends, my dad would watch football. And back then there were like 4 channels, so not the 500 there are today. And I was the remote control. So at a commercial, you had 2 minutes at the commercial for me to run up and turn the channel to, usually there was a war movie playing opposite football on Sundays. And I'd flip it to that war movie and I'd watch for 2 minutes. And then my dad would be looking at his watch, and then he'd say, okay, flip it back. And I'd flip it back to football until the next commercial. And then I'd run up and flip it again so I could watch whatever little 2-minute section of a war movie. Because I was not interested in football, but I was really interested in those war movies. And one of them was The Frogmen. And so I saw these guys climbing up over the beach, blowing obstacles in advance of a conventional force landing. And I asked my dad, hey, who are these guys? And he said, they're the Frogmen. Like, okay, Dad, great. That's the name of the movie. And I said, who are they? And he said, well, ask your mother. Flip it back to football. So I flipped it back to football and asked my mom. And she said, well, she took every opportunity she could to take us to the library and do research. So we went down there and did some research and found out what I've learned about SEALs. And that was just it. It resonated with me immediately. And so off I went. That was the direction I took.
So the Dewey Decimal System strikes.
That's it. Again. Yep. She knew how to operate that thing. So we could find the couple mentions of SEALs SEALs that there were back in the early 80s. And there weren't many.
Yeah. Did you read any of the Marcinko books?
I did. So the first one, Rogue Warrior, came out in 1992.
Yeah.
So I was a freshman in college, and that was one of the first books that came out that specifically, talked about development group and specifically talked about a person's journey from enlisted to the officer ranks, and then wove in the counterterrorism piece and all that. So that one I was very excited to read back in 1992, and I still had a few years left of school before I would actually join the military. But that one, and then a few others in its wake. I think Point Man came out by Patches Watson, and then there were a few others that started to be written mostly about people's Vietnam experience. And I read each and every one of those. Now today you couldn't possibly read everything about SEALs, but up until 1995, you essentially could read everything that came out or was published, or in either a book or in a magazine or in a news channel, whatever. You could get that stuff, and you could read everything. Now there's so much information out there. There's no way you could possibly read all of it. You can't even read a fraction of it, really.
No, I know it's I mean, with just stuff across the board, it's kind of over inundated. I mean, pick any topic, like between YouTube videos, books, podcasts, like, it makes it difficult to sift through the shit to figure out what to listen to, watch, read, etc.
Oh yeah. And there's no filter. So back in the day,
kind of like me.
Exactly. which is great in a lot of respects. But once again, also there is no filter in that. Before, if you wrote a letter to the editor, a letter would, let's say he'd get 100 letters, and then he'd have to decide, hey, which one of these sound the most coherent, sound like the person knows what they're talking about, will be interesting to readers, and then he'd pick 2 or 3 of those to actually go in the magazine, go in the newspaper, whatever it was. But now, wow, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, it's everywhere.
Everybody
with no
has
filter
a voice.
whatsoever. So it's both good and bad. I mean, we're here today talking on one of these platforms, which is amazing to be able to do and catch up, and a great way to connect with people. And the one thing I do like about social media is that I can thank people for reading the book. People can reach out to me and say, hey, I read this thing, I loved it, thank you so much, this part really spoke to me, and I can thank them for that support. So I really enjoy doing that part of it.
I mean, to me, it kind of really encapsulates the First Amendment, for the new age, if you will. But it's absolutely a double-edged sword. I mean, because it kind of makes you realize how many fucking crazy people there are out there.
They get blocked immediately, and I don't feel bad about it.
I try to not read comments most of the time, because it ends up being just a rabbit hole that's not worth going down. But
sure, so I don't have so many followers where I can't get through them all at this point. So really, I just respond to people and talk to people on Instagram and Twitter. 3 platforms was too many, so those are the 2 that I really concentrate on, and where it's me responding and reading everything. But maybe at some point we'll get to a place where I can't respond to everybody. But right now I can at least give a little heart on there for a like, or I can say thank you, or I can answer a question. So I'm still at that point where I can do that, and I do enjoy being able to do that.
It is neat to interact with people, that way, because it gives you a good idea of what people like and don't like, and either validates or makes you think about what you're doing, if you need to, do things different or whatever. So it definitely is cool.
Yeah, particularly for some things, it's like word of mouth that used to be actual word of mouth, and now it's word of keyboard. But it's that power of word of mouth just multiplied exponentially across these different platforms. So it obviously can really help you if you're someone and have a product that people like and want to tell their friends about. Well, it lets them tell more than just their circle of quote unquote friends. It allows them to tell everybody out there that follows them about it as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. In terms, you mentioned you went to college. Obviously, right after high school, did you go high school straight to college, straight into the Navy, or?
Yeah. So it was that was just the path, and everybody has a different path that worked for them. But for me, I just looked at college as the next step after high school, and a place for me to continue training to get ready to join the SEAL teams. So it allowed me to get in better shape, to continue training in jiu-jitsu and boxing, and at the time it was Jeet Kune Do at the time. So it was kind of like the mixed martial art of the day before someone coined the term MMA. So I got to do all that focus, and at the time it was just run as far as you can, as fast as you can, lift heavy weights. Like that was it. So, CrossFit had not been invented yet. So it was just making it up kind of as I went, taking stuff out of Ultimate Bodybuilding from Arnold Schwarzenegger, and then adding endurance running to that, and endurance swimming to that, and kind of cobbling together something I thought would work for SEAL training. Now there are so many programs out there that I mean, it's amazing. The people coming in today have got to be so much more prepared than we were on a physical and hopefully on a mental level as well. But really, attrition, as you know, has remained pretty much the same over the years, because really that cold, that sleep deprivation, and that that drive and that mental fortitude that we're looking for is something that you can't really test for ahead of time until you've tested it in a crucible. But physically, guys should be coming in just with all the CrossFit, all the Jim Jones, all that stuff, and all the different SEAL training programs there are out there that are great to prepare you physically. And then all the MMA stuff, guys get into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu so early now, and it's awesome.
It makes me jealous. I mean, I wish that we had that at our disposal growing up. I mean, because I see kids. I mean, do you grapple now at all?
So I'm going to be on my second spine surgery here soon. So I think wherever I was with my ground fighting skills, I've plateaued. So now really it's about being around to physically be able to do things with the kids and do all the things that I enjoy and be prepared for what life throws at me. But luckily I got an early start with my ground fighting and boxing and all that stuff. So well before I came in the Navy. And now wherever I am, I have to be happy with that set of martial skills. Of course, I'll continue to work on my shooting and all the rest of it. And the mindset's always there. But I'm lucky I got in early.
No, it's cool. I mean, I did a little bit of that kind of stuff in high school for a few years before I came in, but I came in, at 17, 18, and it is kind of astounding the morphing of combatives as it relates to hand-to-hand stuff that our community has gone through in the last 10, 15 years. Like since we were kind of at the pipe hitter, sled dog stage, like there was a lot less of it focused on, which to me there shouldn't be a ton focused on it. I mean, take the 20 best MMA fighters in the world and put them in a house and send 4 team guys in there, and every one of them will be, their brains will be on the wall. So I mean, like, it's the amount of time that you have to spend to dedicate to get that good at it is counterproductive as it relates to being a good SEAL operator. But obviously there are a number of benefits, and it should have time spent on it. I wish that there was as much dedicated to it back when we were, young guys in platoons as there is now. But, shit happens.
Well, a lot of it's the mindset piece. And especially before people come into the military, being able to be put in a position that is a fight, is you against another human being at a very visceral level, very primal level. It doesn't happen that often unless you go out and get an actual fight. And today you don't know who you're going up against.
I know.
So obviously much safer to do it in the ring or on the mat. And also probably better for you, well, from a legal standpoint, of course, but also from that endurance standpoint, and just knowing that no one's stopping this thing, and unless you tap out, and you're going to go as long as you possibly can, and you're going to be put to the test, and it's just a different type of thing, especially when you get to some of these when they put in fresh people. So you're on the mat, you're going through some sort of a test, and okay, one person's out, another person's in, and he's fresh, and you're not. And then they do it again and again and again. Like, that's some of the hardest training I ever did. And couple that with some of the endurance runs that I did growing up, trail running. And then, I thought back to those when I was under the boat in Buds, and thought back to that. Hey, you know what? All those trail runs up those steep mountains I did as a kid, and all that time I spent on the mat fighting another human being. This is tough right here, running through the sand with the boat on my head, but it's comparable to some of the other things that I put myself through in the past. And all I had to do, just like then, is just not quit.
No, there's a lot of good life lessons even today. I mean, I grapple a couple times a week, and the balance that it brings in terms of ego and blowing my physical and mental wad in terms of not bottling things up and being able to kind of release some of that on a regular basis has been incredibly beneficial for me. But
it helps with that mindset too. I mean, it's and like we were talking about, coming into the house and being able to run through that house with 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys, whatever it is. Just having that mindset from your ground fighting, from your boxing, from your combatives helps in all aspects of life, but particularly in that focused aggression, that focused violence that you need to bring to bear when the time is right and appropriate. There are very few places places you can do that and learn to channel it effectively and appropriately.
Yeah.
So one is the mat and in the ring with MMA. So I think it's so the outside of just the skills of handling another human being, being able to manipulate another human being physically, it's that focused aggression. That's really the key part of it.
Yeah, I mean, you've done in some of your tactical consulting stuff. You worked with a lot of cops, I'm assuming, in the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I work with some. I wouldn't say a lot, but I work with a number.
Yeah, I mean, to me, one of the things that because I work with a ton of them all over the country, and I'm baffled at how few of them actually do jujitsu. Like, to me, of any profession and any sport that you could do that would augment, where your life is on the line, there's tons of them that don't do it. Like, it's baffling to me,
Right.
I mean, same thing with shooting. Like, I've seen a lot of cops that can't shoot worth a damn, and don't grapple. And it's like, this is your job and your life depends on it, but
not only your life, but the lives of your family members, your kids, and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
Not that you should plan on going to the ground with somebody, but once again, it's that focused aggression and worst case scenario. If you're a cop, be on the ground wrestling over a firearm. Like that is probably the worst case scenario without a partner there, or your partner's wounded or shot, and it's you, and now it is you against another human being fighting for that weapon. So I'd highly recommend it.
I approve of this message. All right, so you spent 20 years in the SEAL teams, partly enlisted, part officer. I don't want to spend an hour talking about that, but I think it provides some good backdrop onto the book, which we'll get into after that. But if you could just kind of give us the Reader's Digest version of your naval career. I know people are interested in some of the ins and outs of that.
Yeah, well, we mentioned Marcinko's book from the early 90s, the first one, Rogue Warrior, and that's the first time I found out, oh, okay, there's an officer and enlisted ranks here, and officers typically aren't snipers. And then we have the influence, I'll say, of popular culture. So all the Vietnam movies I saw growing up, and you probably did too, they always showed this brand new officer, butter bars on his collar, showing up in Vietnam, telling the guys to get a haircut, telling the guys to shave, and then leading them right into an ambush. Like every single one, that really stood out to me. And I didn't want to be that guy. And then I read Marcinko's book, and it said, hey, he was an enlisted guy first, then he became an officer. So he established his reputation early on. He learned the trade early on as an enlisted guy. Then he became an officer. And in reading that book, it made him a much more effective officer because, one, he had the reputation. People knew his character, knew his drive, knew his determination, knew his skill set, and he knew theirs. So it worked out well. And I thought, oh, that's a good way to go. That's what I'm going to do. So definitely wanted to start in the mailroom and work my way up. I wanted to learn the trade. I wanted to be a sniper, and then decide if I wanted to be an officer or not. So did my first 2 platoons. Second one was we were 1 week or 2 weeks into it was September 11th.
So you were on deployment.
Yeah. So I was with Happy and Fro and all those guys that and September 11th happened, and then we were off to the Middle East, and we all thought we were going to Afghanistan right away, but Team 3 ended up going, and we ended up taking their mission doing the shipboardings.
You're welcome.
Out of Iraq. So it was, we all thought we were going to go, and we bummed when we didn't. But before September 11th, the shipboardings, that was one of the only games in town. Afterward, people all wanted to get into Afghanistan, and eventually made it there fairly soon thereafter. But anyway, it was a good run. But I had to decide on OCS before September 11th. So it was spring of 2001. So truth be told, had September 11th happened, let's say in February of that year, I would have made a different decision just because I wanted to be in the fight and wanted to stay in the fight as long as I could. And typically a better way to do that is as an enlisted guy. But spring 2001, the Master Chief said, hey, you got to decide. And so I said, I think I'm going to do the OCS route because I had some fairly poor leadership, and we'll leave it at that, in my first 2 platoons. And all the guys were just complaining about it. And I thought, well, I can either complain about it or I can do something about it. And so I say, I owe it to myself to see if I can do it better than it was done for me, and to the guys that are having a bad experience right now. It's time for me to go see if I can do it better. So that was really the impetus behind me choosing to go the OCS route.
And so once you did that, what from OCS and then getting your commission, I'm curious, and I've always wondered, is there kind of a weird feeling for guys that you're not an officer and then now all you are, and you're going back to the same community and now you're in that kind of different category? What was that like, and was it kind of a weird feeling? Or
Yeah, no, it was not a weird feeling for me. It was a very natural transition for me. Yeah. Just all my life I've been a leader, and so I was a leader as an E1, as an E2, as an E3, as an E4, as an E5. So it was a very natural thing for me to do, was to become an officer and to keep doing. I didn't change who I was. I was still the exact same guy. Yeah. And I think that's what really also helped make me successful as an officer, is that I didn't look at it. I looked at it as a leadership position. I didn't look at it as, okay, I was enlisted, now I'm an officer. I've always been a leader, and this is just another position as a leader going forward here. So yeah, I went to OCS, where they teach you to fold underwear and t-shirts, and somehow that makes you, for 3 months. Yeah. So you're really good at that. Ironing your clothes, making your bed, all those sorts of things. Yeah. And then right back to the SEAL team. Somehow, I don't know, the OCS thing was just, it was awful. I kind of blocked it off in my head and forgotten most about it because it was so horrible. I just wanted to get back in the fight, and luckily I got to Team 2, and they provided me that opportunity. So I went right down range to Afghanistan, and then a couple more Iraq deployments with them. But it was a good time to have just become an officer, because I got to get right in the fight. I didn't have to go back through BUDS, didn't have to go back through SEAL qualification training. Just got to jump right in the mix, and got some good experiences right off the bat that helped me later.
Yeah. Well, as an officer, in command of either, a platoon or a task element in a combat environment, were there any instances where you lost any of your guys? I
know, I was really lucky. Yeah. Guys were lost on deployments, but they weren't guys that were directly under me as a squad commander, as a platoon commander, as a troop commander, as a task unit commander. Yeah. So we did lose guys, other SEALs on my deployments, but none that fell right under me, which I feel very fortunate in that respect, that some of the decisions that I made worked out well under fire. And I can see how you make the right decisions at the right time with all the best information available. Things can still go south because that enemy gets not just one vote, they get multiple votes.
Murphy's got the jump on everybody.
Murphy has, exactly. Murphy rears his head almost every mission. So things, you adapt on the fly, you adapt, the enemy's adapting to you, you're always adapting to the enemy. Whoever does it faster is typically the one who's going to come out on top in that particular situation, or strategically, if we think of it that way. But I was very fortunate. That's for sure.
One thing I'm curious, just because you're one of the few officers that I know and would still talk to, I guess. But when you're in that environment, I'm curious in terms of your mentality. As it relates to what driving force, or how big of a role does that potential play in your decision-making process? Does it affect it? Is it something you even think about, or is it just
bringing the guys back?
Yeah, just, we may lose something, like, this is more dangerous now, let's do it this way instead. Like, is that a struggle? Is it, what role does that play, and how does it affect you as you're developing, say, mission concept or concept of operation type of mission plans?
So I can only speak for me. So for me, it was always at the forefront of my thinking, not so much that I was worried about it, but that it would be factored into my calculus in a very large way. Yeah. But also I would talk about it before we deployed, with the guys, with my leadership team, because a lot of times I think we don't do that. We didn't prepare guys to lose people downrange. This is war. We lose guys in training before September 11th. We lose guys in training after September 11th. But we didn't effectively prepare people especially leaders, to lose their guys in combat. Yeah. We just didn't talk about it. We focused on the mission. We focused on our training. And none of that training was, hey, if you lose somebody, either this is what you do, or there's some lessons from other people, or hey, at least think about this before you head downrange. Don't let it be a surprise when you lose someone in war. Yeah. And for me, I thought about that a lot. Yeah. And I talked to my guys about it a lot, because if they lost somebody, I didn't want that to be the first time they thought this is a possibility. Mm-hmm. Like, oh my gosh, I lost somebody in training. We had guys go down, but after we got back, we debriefed it and we learned from that, and then we moved on to the next training iteration. Mm-hmm. We didn't talk about what actually happens if somebody dies. Yeah. So I did think about that, and I did talk about it with my guys, so that essentially you're not inoculating them, but you're doing your best to have it in their minds that, hey, we could lose somebody downrange and we're still going to be expected to do our jobs.
Yeah.
We're still going to have to move forward. We're going to war.
Yeah.
And people die in war. So don't let it be a surprise when it happens.
Yeah.
And that might sound cold, but really it's the reality of the situation. And you need to think about it, particularly as a leader, so that you are not immobilized by that when it happens downrange, when the bullets are flying, especially, at the height of these wars. And when you're losing guys, IEDs can be anywhere, they can be anything, and you can't let it just freeze you and immobilize your operations. So, it's something we definitely need to think about, talk about, but not let it scare you into not doing things. You just have to, it's your responsibility as you're planning these missions to help to plan them in a way that takes that into account. I think you owe that to the guys.
No, I agree. And I think, it's a good point that, losing people is not unlike anything else in that, if the first time it happens is the first time you've thought about it, you're going to be woefully underprepared. I mean, pick anything.
Exactly.
It could be, any skill set or any experience that if it catches you with your pants down or completely off guard, it's going to be much harder to deal with it than if you've at least prepared for it to a certain extent. That's a good point.
And a lot of guys are still dealing with it today, years later. Sure. I mean, people deal with it there. You'll deal with it your whole lives, but how you deal with that is really, really what's important. And you'll be able to more effectively deal with it if you have thought about it ahead of time, and if you factor it into your decision-making process out there as you're planning missions to most effectively combat the enemy.
Yeah, absolutely. From all of your time being a leader of SEALs in combat, is there one thing that sticks out that is a takeaway or lesson learned from that experience, kind of generally speaking?
Adapting to the enemy as fast as you possibly can, because they don't have a huge bureaucracy. They can adapt on the fly. We tend, even in special operations, it's a smaller bureaucracy, but it's still there. So you have a gigantic bureaucracy, and it takes a long time to essentially move some of those. It's like moving a ship. It takes a long time to turn that thing around or make a slight adjustment. It takes time. So being able to adapt on the fly, that's it's just in life in general is probably the most important. But some of the stuff I got later on, particularly from one of my COs at Team 2, and I won't say his name because I didn't ask ahead of time if I could, but I can also talk about Jocko's training, because obviously he's out there and doing great things outside the military, inspiring people to reach their full potential. But being able to take a breath, look around, and make a call. Like Jocko giving me that was just validated some of the things I'd already been doing, and then it let me pass that on to guys that I worked with afterwards. So when things are chaos, take a breath, look around, make a call. And if you have multiple things going on at one time, multiple emergencies, total chaos, prioritize and execute. So just like anything in life, if you're juggling a gazillion things, well, some things are going to get dropped, and you might drop the one that you need to be focused on at that time. The most. So being able to prioritize and execute. Those are probably the ones that stick out the most. And then from my CO at Team 2, he spent the first year after September 11th deployed to Afghanistan. And really that was the first time that we'd been in sustained combat operations since Vietnam. We'd have flashpoints at, let's say, Desert One, at Grenada, Panama, Mogadishu, but nothing sustained over so much time. So for him to be there for an entire year after September 11th, he brought back some lessons to us to pass on to us before we took guys into combat. And the most important, he said, always improve your fighting position. Second one was exploit all technical and tactical advantages. The one's most important, there was push situational awareness both up and down the chain of command. So situational awareness, for those listening, is just information. It's just talking, communicating effectively. But the most important one to me was, in the absence of orders or direction on the battlefield, take charge and lead. So that's the one I always wanted to leave my guys with, whether they were an E2, an E3, or the first platoon, whatever. When things went down, things turned to chaos, was, hey, I expect you to lead.
I'm pretty sure, like, the last 5 minutes of this conversation, there's at least half a dozen inspirational memes we're going to be able to pull out of that one.
Awesome.
So be on the lookout for some mic drop memes here.
Awesome. Well, I want to make sure I give credit where credit is due. Those are all things that were passed on.
No, I'm going to quote you on them, and I'm going to blast them out.
All right. I'll take it.
No, it's those are all fantastic points and good. They transcend military, and just apply to life in general. So
We absolutely do.
Appreciate you dropping that knowledge on here. So as you got out, you did 20 years, did the full retirement. 30 if you like it, 20 if you don't, right?
20 to wake up. It was my time in combat was done at that point, and my future looked like more staff jobs. And even today's military, if you're a commanding officer, well, you're in a leadership role, but you're really commanding from a tactical operations center. You're not out there kicking doors with the guys. You're not tactically maneuvering guys on the battlefield anymore. So plus it was time to take care of the family. We have 3 kiddos, and the middle one has some severe special needs. So it was very evident to me that it was time to get out and take care of the family and make a switch. So it was time to pursue my next dream.
Yeah. So speaking of that, what did the writing process on the whole look like? I know, from just researching a little bit, it was over a long coffee, and it was in Manhattan, and there was kind of a series of events that led that to you. But if you could kind of go through that process of it going from a lifelong dream into actually putting it into the reality motion, that would be good.
Yeah, well, the Manhattan coffee, that came later after the book was already finished. But it was really during that last year in the military. Once you drop your papers, particularly as an officer, you're not really forgotten about, but you're on a different track. So your last year in the military, at least for me, was, hey, you need to get out of the military administratively. And I felt like I was the first person to ever do this. I know it happens every day, but for whatever reason, you go with your papers and you go to medical and you go to dental and you go to this transition program and you get things signed and you turn in your gear and you do all these things. But everywhere you go, it's just confusion. But anyway, during that time frame, that's when I had some time to take a breath and to think about my next move. And I knew that I was going to write, because that's what I wanted to do since I was a little kid, other than being a SEAL. And being a SEAL had to come first. And once September 11th happened, I knew I was going to stay in as long as I could possibly lead guys tactically on the battlefield. And now it was time to move on. It was time to transition and leave that life behind and start this next profession. And I think of it as a profession, kind of like I thought of the military as a profession. There's a reason we call it a profession of arms and not a career of arms. And it's and the people that think of it as a career, I think, are not necessarily as successful as those that don't. But that might be a different podcast. And so
everything is open on here.
But I think of writing as a profession as well. I don't look at it as a career. It's a calling. Just like being in the military was a calling for me, writing is also a calling. So during that last year, I got to start writing, and I wrote down about, I think, 5 or 6 different ideas for a story. And while I was in the military, I wasn't practicing writing. I wasn't thinking about that the next move. I wasn't writing down ideas, and not that it would be wrong to do so, but I just didn't. I just focused on the mission, focused on the guys. Any spare time I had was spent studying tactics, studying the enemy, studying where we were going in the world, lessons learned from other people that were there, because that's what I thought I owed the guys, what I owed their families, what I owed the mission, and essentially owed the country, to be focused. But the interesting part is that now that has done a lot of research for me. That's a lot of my research has been done for these novels in the political military thriller space. But anyway, I wrote down 5 or 6 different ideas, and then I chose the one that I thought would be the most hard-hitting, the most primal, the most visceral, and would resonate with people the most. And that was that age-old theme of revenge. I was just always drawn to that as a kid in the novels that I read and in the movies that I watched. And there's something about the theme of revenge that just resonates with people. And it probably takes us back to being around the campfire and defending the tribe, providing for the tribe, telling stories to the tribe about battles. And there's just that revenge just resonates with people for some reason. So that's what I wanted to focus on out of the gate. And then also wanted to apply the things that I had felt at some point over the last 20 years. So take those emotions from real world events and then put them into a fictional narrative. So this is complete fiction, but the emotions the protagonist feels. There's some elements of reality in there, that's for sure. But it's the emotions that the protagonist feels are things that I felt at some point downrange. And the situation is different, but the feeling and the emotions are real. And I think that's why it resonated with Simon & Schuster when Emily Bessler at Emily Bessler Books read it. And she's arguably one of the best editors in New York. And she loved it. And the next thing you know, we're off to the races. But Brad Thor, Carr, who's an author in this genre, is the guy that connected me with her and opened the door for me. And I'll never be able to thank him enough for doing that. And as he says, he cracked the door and I kicked it open. So, but I give him complete credit for I would not be sitting here today if it weren't for him.
Yeah. He cracked it open and you explosive breached it the rest of the way.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
That's why I look at it too. I like how he says it.
Yeah. One of the neat things that I like about it, and I think probably one of the reasons it's resonated so well, with the populace, is not just the feeling of revenge that I think a lot of people subscribe to and are satiated by, but also the fact that it's seeking revenge on a system that overwhelmingly our public is just frustrated with, and so to me that was one of the things that I liked out of it, at least, was that it's kind of a two sides of that coin of its revenge, but it's also like holding people accountable in a manner in which they're not really held accountable these days, and so I'm curious, is there an element of that in terms of not anti-government, but that just, frustrations with bureaucracy, with red tape, that contributed to that being a main component of the storyline?
Oh, yeah. I think we can all identify with government, taxes, control, overreach, all these things that, it's easy to make a bad guy out of a politician. Yeah. So there is that. But I was inspired also by the church hearings in the late 70s. So those exposed a lot of government overreach by certain elements of the federal government, from the CIA, NSA, and a lot of changes happened after those hearings in the late 70s. And I took that. I wanted to take that to modern times. Like, hey, what if those hearings didn't happen, or what if someone just didn't get the memo? Enough time's passed since then that I can take the inspiration from those hearings and twist it into this modern narrative. And that's where the conspiracy and the testing of drugs on our nation's most elite soldiers comes up, which are some of the things that they were doing, the CIA was doing up until the late 70s, testing out things on people from the military, people in mental institutions, hospitals, college students, really without their consent. And that came to a halt at the end of the 70s. Yeah. But I kind of brought it back to life here in the pages of the terminal list. And then I also wanted our protagonist here to, there's a lot of that nothing left to lose in movies and in books, and I just did air quotes right there. But I thought, hey, how does someone really have nothing left to lose? And that's why I wanted him to essentially think he was dead and go into combat thinking he was already dead. And I got that from Bushido, from ancient samurai tradition, where they would go into battle thinking they were already dead because they thought that made them more effective and efficient warriors. Yeah. So I wanted to apply that to a modern narrative. So I had to bring in something to make that happen, and that was the testing of drugs that had side effects that weren't anticipated, that had people in the government, in the financial sector, and the pharmaceutical industry have to cover up what they'd done in testing these drugs on a troop of SEALs. So that's where the conspiracy comes in, and then our protagonist is he loses his troop on the battlefield, his family at home, and thinks he's dying. Yeah. And then he essentially becomes the insurgent that he's been fighting for the last 16 years, in the book anyway, 16 years. And it takes the things that worked against us in Iraq and Afghanistan, brings those to home soil, and starts working his way up his list to the highest echelons of the U.S. government. Yeah. It was very therapeutic to write, as you can tell.
Yeah, no, I can. I mean, I got a lot of enjoyment out of reading it, in that, seeing, that retribution. I mean, I don't know of anybody that ever got railroaded to the degree with which, Reese did, but there's plenty of stories, and I know we have common friends that are like, are you shitting me? Like getting in trouble for some of the things that we've gotten in trouble for after what we've done. And so there's an element of scratching that itch a little bit that you get out of reading the book. That's pretty fascinating.
Oh yeah, those that know us and know me will. The book might mean a little more to them than it might mean to others.
Yeah, for sure it does.
I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, yep. Read between the lines on that one. Was there any element of in college, did you, I didn't ask what your degree was in, but is that something writing-wise that you were classically trained in? Or?
No, it's just growing up with a mom that was a librarian and reading from a very early age, it just set me up to be able to do this. And I didn't plan it that way.
Yeah.
But it's just how it turned out. No, in school I studied criminology just because I wanted to get out of there quick. I wanted to get out of there in 4 years and get right to the SEAL teams. And I thought I can't go any longer than 4 years. So I just chose something I could get through, and was interesting to me as well. But really, it's just all the reading that I did growing up, and then all the study that I did while on the SEAL teams, and those two merged together to be able to lend itself to writing a political military thriller and have it be a success.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. It's a fascinating read. When you had the concept of what the story was going to be about, I'm curious two things. One, how long did it take from when you really sat down and started to when you finished, all editing and all that other shit aside? But then the other thing too was the concept of the story pretty much that from the start, or did you pivot at all and change it at all throughout the story or throughout the process?
Yeah, no, it stayed the same. And I wrote that synopsis. Title came to me right away. And then I did a fairly basic outline of 3 parts. And about let's say about 75% through the novel, I would fill in that outline with things that came to me as I was writing. So it wasn't an outline that was so rigid that things couldn't change, but I'd fill it in as I was going, as things made more sense in the story, or I thought I needed to develop something more or less or whatever it was. And then when I got to about the 75% mark, that's when it was like, okay, now I can just continue to write, and I don't need to fill this in anymore. I've got it from here. So that was kind of the route I took. And early on, I reached out to a friend of mine who is a lobbyist and knows the pharmaceutical industry well, and knows the corridors of DC politics very well. And so we collaborated on this and went back and forth on chapters. His name's Keith Wood. He's a great guy. And that made this a stronger story for sure. So we collaborate together, and it's a great, coming from a team background, that just seemed to make sense.
Yeah. One of the things I love most about this, and obviously it resonates probably a little more with me than your average asshole out there, but the vivid accuracy with which you talk about the experiences, both in the community around San Diego, things of that nature. One in particular was, I believe it's chapter 45 or 46, where you talk about the Fort Rosecrans National Cemetery and that drive up there that any of us, team guys have made, and to me, what captured my interest and really I was very impressed with was your ability to communicate that, because it's an area I've been and I know, and being able to highlight that and explain it in a manner of which, it almost gave me chills. Like, it felt like I was going with Reese up there almost, and I can't sing your praises enough on how good of a job you did. It was really impressive.
Thank you. That was a special chapter to write. And I didn't go back there. That was just all from memory. I didn't say, I'm going to write this chapter now. Let me go back. And it was because we've been up there so many times. I didn't go back to research it and take notes and do all that. It was just all from more from just the feeling of what it was like to be there and to go up there and to have coffee at the bottom every time, kind of the ritual, and then to go up to the top there, park. So it was more of a feeling, rather than a specific memory of. So just the feeling of that journey, the feeling of walking through Fort Rosecrans, the feeling of seeing that view with so many, sometimes with fog, sometimes in rain, sometimes with sun, birds chirping sometimes, sprinklers going off sometimes, storms coming in sometimes, and just take all that and apply it to this fictional narrative. So that was a special chapter to write.
No, it absolutely shows. And one of the things that I'm not a big fiction guy, but I will say the fiction works that I've read and enjoyed, yours absolutely being one of them, is that I think you do kind of a textbook, consummate example in terms of striking that balance of being descriptive enough to make it feel very real and understandable and relatable, but not so over descriptive to where people are trying to, you can see they're trying too hard almost.
Right.
So I think it's brilliantly written. It's a phenomenal story. For those of you who either haven't heard of it, go ahead and choke yourself. If you have heard of it and haven't bought it, choke yourself twice. And but for sure, you want to pick this up and read it because it's fantastic. One question I did have, the terminology that you use and the the amount of information that you have just in terms of lending credibility to the story, in terms of the detail, how much research did you have to do versus what you just knew from being in the community?
Right.
Was there a lot? Or?
Well, I wanted to double check everything because I knew I would get extra scrutiny coming from with my background. So I wanted to make sure that all that stuff was right. Yeah. So I didn't want to make assumptions that just, because I've been doing this for 20 years and because I have so much time behind the gun that I know what I'm writing about here, because I might have made some false assumptions along the way or whatever else. So I tried in every case possible to go back and research just to make sure. And there's a few that I was not I was wrong on, and I forget the exact example, but one of them I think I'd been saying the wrong thing for 20 years, and I researched it, and I was like, oh, that's what that stands for. No kidding. So awesome. there was one in particular, I can't remember what it was, but so I did go back and research just because I knew I'd have that added scrutiny and needed to make sure that it was going to be right.
I mean, I'll tell you, the glossary of terms in the back honestly should be an appendix to the Blue Jackets manual if you're going through buds almost. I mean, like there's a ton of stuff in there that even me, like I'm reading, I'm like, shit, I didn't know that's what that meant.
See that? Yeah, there's a couple of those. Yeah. And I just loved glossaries growing up as a kid because we couldn't just search things on Google. And you had to go to a glossary somewhere or a dictionary or whatever. But the specific military ones I always loved. And then I wanted it to read like it was part of the story, which is why they're not just dry definitions. There's a few little things in there. There's humor in there. And I wanted it to read like it was part of the story. And then I did send it to the government. I sent it to the DOD to their Office of Pre-Publication and Review. So they took out some stuff both in the story and in the glossary. And I left them redacted because it was fairly ridiculous what they took out. But hey, that's I wanted to honor my former security clearances and do the right thing. So I just left it in there because I didn't know, hey, if I write around this, do I have to resubmit weird. And then wait another 30 days, 60 days, whatever it is. So I just left it in as part of the story to let people guess what they took out.
I think it looks cooler too, honestly. Yeah, it's pretty cool seeing black lines in there. But all right, so moving on, just real quick as we kind of wrap up here. Did you have some involvement in the CBS show SEAL Team?
So I just know a lot of the people that are involved in it, and one of the guys that's producing it, and I've met some of the actors and got to know them over the last year, and they're all so great. So they asked me to come and host the premiere that they did in LA a couple weeks ago, and I got to ask the actors questions on stage and host the event. It was amazing, and the people that I hadn't known before that I know now, they're all just great, and they care about the show. They care about representing team guys to the best of their ability. They're really emotionally involved in the show, all of them. So they want to get it as right as you can in a television show. And that's not just the actors, that's the writers in particular. It's the producers, it's people that direct the episodes, and they have 150 plus veterans working on the show. Some in front of the camera, some behind the camera, but 150 plus. And I think they want to get to 200 this year working on the show. And it's in its second season. And just a great group of guys. So I would like to, and girls. And I just want to support them as much as I can because I know that the care that they're taking to get that show right.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. In terms of the Terminal List being optioned or turned into a movie, is there any light you can shed on that being a potential?
I would love to be able to announce today that who optioned it for a movie, but
so it has been optioned.
It has been optioned, and so things are on track, and he's going to announce it here hopefully soon, and I can't wait for that to get announced. And I also keep my expectations low though, because I know in Hollywood they can get distracted very easily. But as of yesterday, things were on track and looking good. And the crazy part is that the only person that I imagine playing the role of James Reese, the protagonist of the story, is the person that actually optioned it.
Just by luck, huh?
Crazy. Just I mean, there's a story that goes along with that as well. And he optioned it before it actually hit the shelves. But that might be for another day after we announce it.
Well, I'm glad to see that Clint Eastwood is still going strong, because I'm sure that's who you're talking about.
He might be
Dirty Harry 3.0.
He might be James Reese's grandfather.
That's good stuff. I know you've got your next book, The True Believer, coming out, which is basically the second installment of this. It's scheduled for spring of next year, correct?
That's right. April 2nd.
Yeah, so everything's finished with that, and it's been submitted and all that.
You have some waiting for DOD to get back. They're taking their time, I'll say, with this one. And I might write an op-ed about the process, because this time it's taken a long time, particularly for a work of fiction. You can read these books in one cross-country flight. I don't know why it takes so long. They need to get some faster readers. They need to hire some faster readers. But so True Believer comes out in spring, April 2nd, and I actually started writing that before I'd even submitted this to Simon & Schuster. So I was always going to write at least 2 books. There's too many instances where someone's first book doesn't make it, and then their second one does. So John Grisham being the example most people point to, and that The Firm was his second book that really took off, and his first one was called A Time to Kill. And they eventually made that into a movie afterward, but it is arguably his best book, I think. But it didn't, out of the gate, it didn't make it. But The Firm rocketed to success, and then they published the Time to Kill again, and then that took off as well. So I was always gonna do a second novel. So I started researching and writing that one before this even came out, and now it's slated for release in April. And I'm actually headed to Africa here in a couple weeks to help train up an anti-poaching unit in that country, because there's an anti-poaching aspect to True Believer, and I'm going to incorporate some of what I learn over there into the final edits. Yeah,
well, that's kick-ass. I know there's a lot of involvement in my industry with anti-poaching, using dogs and things of that nature, and it's something that I've considered getting into to a certain extent.
Nice.
To what level, I don't know yet, but I know there's a lot of bureaucracy and red tape and international foreign policy weird shit that goes into being able to help them and bring animals in country or guns, or, just in general, it's kind of a pain in the ass to deal with, but certainly worth it.
Yeah, well, I will report back.
Yeah, when I get home. Please do. And if there's anything I can do, let me know.
Absolutely.
In terms of kind of looking forward, obviously you got these 2 books. Do you want or plan to just continue writing, or what do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah, no, I'm doing it. Yeah. I'm doing it right now, and just signed another deal with Simon & Schuster a week ago, so for another 2 novels.
Oh, nice.
And I'm already hard at work on book 3. Yeah. Have the title, the theme, the outline, the synopsis, and getting to work on writing it. So I'm super excited about that.
Is there any element of what comes to mind is the movie Misery? Is there an element of creating a space for you to be creative, and is there any of that, or are you writing on planes and on the couch, or is there?
Oh my gosh, yeah. So we have very fortunate to have a very nice home, and I have an office in that house with a beautiful view of the mountains, and I thought that I would get all my writing done in there, and I'd close the door, and then the kids would know that I was writing, and they wouldn't disturb me, and that is not how it worked out. So I go to the local library to write more often than not, because it's quiet, and you can have these little rooms to write in, but at home it's just mass chaos at all times.
Yeah. Probably a little nostalgic being in a library from your childhood.
I do. I love the library, and there's just enough distraction as far as books go. Being surrounded by them to, I don't know if it provides inspiration or not. It probably does, just because I love books and being surrounded by them, which is why I have such a large library of my own at home. Yeah. But it's a great place to write. It works out for me.
Oh, it's awesome. Well, as we wrap up here, I just want to thank you again for coming. I know you're a busy guy, and you've been all over the country, but I'm glad to hear you're taking the youngins hunting here fairly locally. Wish you the best of luck on that trip. And generally speaking, is there anything you want to add before we close it out?
I guess we can talk about, if anybody wants a little more of a deep dive, we talked about some of the technical aspects that I wrote about in the terminal list. And for people that want a really deep dive, like for the super geeky technical people, on the website at officialjackcarr.com, there's some blog posts that go really deep into M4, into sniper weapon systems, and some of the knives, that sort of thing. So people can get some more information about that technical aspect of things there.
Okay, yeah. Where can people follow you on Twitter, Instagram, and your homepage? We'll put it in the show notes and link it, but if you want to announce it too, it'd be good.
Yeah. So there's a new thing we're just launching, and it's they can text 44222, and they can write Jack Carr JackCarr. Put that in the text and send it to 44222, and they'll get a little welcome text back, and they can put their email in if they'd like to get about a once a month or once every 2 month little email update, and get some first look at what's coming, like
nice.
first to see the new cover of the new book, or to get a blog post or my thoughts on like September 11th or whatever it may be. Yeah. So they'll get a little inside scoop doing that. So that's 44222. And then I'm Jack Carr USA on the social media, and that's Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. But Facebook's really just ads and stuff like that, so I don't really do anything on that because it's just too much. So Instagram and Twitter are the ones where I really correspond with people, and that's really me, and that's where people can contact me.
Right on. All right. One quick thing for the listeners. We're going to have Jack sign a copy of his book, and we're going to be giving it away. We'll have some details for the listenership as to who's going to get it, but he's going to write some smart-ass comment about mic drop in there for sure. And it's the one sitting on this table that was here for the interview. That's the one that one lucky audience member will be getting, so stay tuned for that. As always, thank you again, Jack, for joining us. It's been great catching up with you and having you here. Super proud of you and all the success you've had. It's really kick-ass to see fellow brothers in arms crushing it the way that so many of them are, and you're certainly no exception to that. So I applaud all of your success. I'm proud of you. I'm happy for you, and I wish you continued success in every regard. And for the listeners, as always, we appreciate you guys tuning in. Without you guys, our show wouldn't exist. So thank you. And if there's any question as to whether or not you should choke yourself, the answer is yes. And until next time, this is Mic Drop.